Hey everybody, it's Nick from Retro Rogue. We're here in Savannah, Georgia today at Savannah College of Art and Design, where we're going to get the opportunity to sit down and talk with two of the filmmakers that just got done working on Odyssey, a Star Wars story. It's a fan film that was shot here in Savannah and on location in Hunting Island, and it brings the Star Wars story to us in a way we've never seen it before. From the perspective of a single foot soldier who's part of a 6-man rebel recon team conducting a mission on an Imperial moon. So without further ado, we're going to get to the interview. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And welcome to our inaugural interview for RetroRogue.com. We are beyond lucky to be sat here with Gavin?
Yep. My name is Gavin Shin. I'm the director of photography for Odyssey, a Star Wars story.
And?
I'm Mark Alex. I'm the writer-director for Odyssey.
Okay, so we're beyond lucky to have access to these gentlemen. We're about a week away from some really exciting news on Odyssey, and we'll be giving you a bit more insight into that later on. But first and foremost, sit back, relax, and enjoy some really good conversation about what I think is going to be an outstanding addition to the Star Wars universe. So we hit on this earlier, gentlemen. What was the initial moment where Star Wars had you hooked and drew you in?
I don't really have a first Star Wars memory. Star Wars has always been present in my house. It's always been on repeat in the background. I grew up in a film household, and it was always a treasured piece. I definitely remember being in line for The Phantom Menace, and I think I was 6, and staying up till midnight to get to see Phantom Menace at midnight. And it's just kind of always been present, for me at least.
I mean, definitely the same. I grew up in a very Star Wars household, and my dad was a huge fan, and I remember, he showed me the movies when I was 2. I don't remember this very well, but I've been told stories that, I didn't turn away. I loved it. I saw every minute of it. And my mom came home and freaked out that my dad had shown me this. I was too young. It was great. And, since then, I've been a huge fan. And what was funny is that on the films I watched, there was an interview with George Lucas beforehand. So my knowledge of, the filmmaking world of it kind of started at that same time. So I was taught, that was an aspect of this process, but like the imagination and creativity of what Star Wars is was another process. So they grew simultaneously and just developed these two major passions in my life. So it was cool.
I always love hearing how Star Wars entered into people's lives. And it's always so different and engaging and unique. But obviously, today we are talking about Odyssey. And Odyssey is a film that appeared out of nowhere, literally for me, on my Twitter feed about 3 months ago. And I'm so glad that it did. For me, it was like scraping the surface and then going a bit deeper. I read the article, and I went and I searched the YouTube videos, and I found your Kickstarter page, and I was so disappointed that I was entering this, like, the knowledge of this project at such a late date. But gentlemen, what was the genesis? When did the spark occur that actually put all of this effort in motion for Star Wars Odyssey to be made?
It's been a long process.
It's been a very long process.
It's been over a year to this point, right?
Yeah.
A
few months.
Where did the idea come from?
Idea came from, it was a point in, midway through my first year of film school, and I knew that I always had this, want to do a Star Wars fan film. This is something I've always felt like I wanted to contribute to, but I knew I was running out of time. I knew that eventually I was going to be working, and I wouldn't be able to just dedicate time to this like it should be. And, I had this concept of an idea that I wanted to see more of the battle side than what Rogue One might have shown. I wanted to see more of, like you said, a direct, boots on the ground view. And I didn't have a story. I didn't have a character. I just had that concept. But I kept playing around with that and just kind of elevator pitching it to people. Like Gavin. It was a very funny story related to that. But yeah, no, it just kind of grew from there. Just this one simple idea, and knew that I had to get this. I had to start doing this soon.
Had to act quick.
I had to act quick.
Gavin, what was your initial reaction when Mark
pitched that idea to you the first time?
It was funny. We were both helping out a mutual friend on a film shoot, on a student shoot. We were hanging out on the back of a truck, and Mark kind of we were just shooting the shit, and he was telling me about this project that he had planned and how he was a member of the 501st and he had shore trooper armor and that he thought he could get these stormtroopers here and stuff. And I told him, if you ever make this movie, Mark, you gotta let me know and I'll be there. And like 4 or 5 months later, I think you hit me up and it started happening from there. Yep. I mean, the ambition that Mark had at the beginning was, I mean, sometimes you get directors that come up to you and they have these ideas and they're ambitious and stuff, and you can tell that they have all these ideas, but they don't have the gusto to back them up. And when I heard Mark, I believed that he was going to make this happen. And so that, for me, sold me on doing it.
You mentioned the 501st, okay? And you also mentioned that you were helping someone else on making a film. I have gotten this distinct feeling that this was a community effort.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Can you expand a little bit upon what we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
We had 13 stormtroopers on set, right?
Yeah, 13.
Traveling in from all over the southeast region, right?
Yeah, it was funny because I knew there was actually a professor at the school that I go to named Dave Steinweg. He was a member as well. So him and I knew that we could just reach out to some friends and hopefully we'll get a response. But when the hurricane happened, a lot of people had to drop out because we were pulling from people in these areas. And I eventually just said I was going to make a large list of people to reach out to. I reached out to every member in Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina.
Florida.
And Florida. And we got a lot of responses. And luckily, a few of the people I reached out to were like the garrison leaders, and they, helped get the word out. But it ended up being a bigger reaction than we thought we were going to get. And that was, on the 501st side, that was great. And I'm a brand new member. I've only been a member for less than a year now.
Okay.
And my dad is the same thing. My dad actually plays the lead shore in this film.
Oh wow! So it's not just a community; it's a family.
Oh, it's family. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
I mean, along with the 501st, we had a lot of cool local people that came out and that were not students that work locally, professionally in the film industry down here that were able to come out and help. I graduated 2 years ago, and Mark approached me with this, and I was super excited to work on it. There's something about Star Wars that just brings out everybody's best foot forward, I guess, or
absolutely,
everyone wants to come out for Star Wars.
It's funny because when you ask for favors on a student film, you get one type of response, but when you ask for you're doing a fan film, then it's a different story. Then it's like Star Wars is a card that can change some things.
I'm pretty sure we got all of our food with a Stormtrooper meet and greet. That was the
we
price
did.
of all the food. It's cool how you can work out those kind of deals with Star Wars.
True. Absolutely. So I had always wondered, because I had seen a few pictures from the set. I'd seen the proof of concept video that you had done for the Kickstarter program. And I was taken with how perfect the Shore Trooper and the original Stormtrooper armor appeared. And I was like, okay, hang on a second. Everybody's seen Troopers. You remember the original Star Wars fan film. And when a lot of people hear Star Wars fan film, they think of something like that.
Troopers.
They think of Troopers. But when I saw the proof of concept and I watched that full Kickstarter video, I realized that there was a full-scale production going on. And then I realized that you're on location at Hunting Island. And then you add to the fact that you have the old Spanish fort as well. And my interest was, I was entirely and completely hooked. I started pestering you via text message, and apologies for that.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
That worked out.
And it led me to wanting to bring all of us together to do this interview for Retro Rogue. One of the other questions that I have is, when did filming start?
Filming started actually February 22nd.
February 22nd. We shot for 2 weekends. It was a 7-day shoot, 1 3-day weekend and 1 4-day weekend. Original principal photography was scheduled for October, and we were slated to start shooting then. And the hurricane came through and destroyed a lot of the locations that we were planning on using.
It totally wiped out the part of Hunting Island that we were going to shoot at, and that was devastating, and we knew that like we were gonna have to change locations. By some miracle, they open up a month later, and we go there, and the damage and the destruction actually added a little bit, like
a little bit of chaos, a little bit of remixing to it. Yeah,
it was
a new energy to it.
It was cool. Happens for a reason.
But yeah, it was probably about a week before we were going to shoot. Maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah,
we pushed back 4 months.
Okay,
which is a huge pushback. But I think inevitably made the film better.
Absolutely.
With so many moving parts that have to be synchronized, you could imagine that a 4-month delay could have prevented this film from ever being made at all.
I mean, absolutely. We were talking about 60 people coming to set on some days. It's just a huge logistical nightmare trying to organize that.
Yeah. No, it was a lot to handle pushing back, because we had actors traveling in from as far north as Chicago, so like people had flights booked and everything, and it was just
a logistical nightmare.
It was intense. Yeah.
Okay. So I asked you about when you started filming, and then I asked you when the idea popped into your head. In one of the videos, you made a comment about you realized that you had everything that you needed to execute the film, but you needed a bit more help to realize the potential that you guys had stumbled upon, to help realize it. Tell me about the whole Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, the Kickstarter came about when we knew making a film, the way we wanted to make it was going to be very, very intense and expensive, and we needed to realize that. But we also knew that, the Star Wars community is so great, and realizing and understanding these things, and seeing the potential in different projects like this. And I've grown up in this community of fans, and I wanted to present this to people as, let's make something that maybe they'll see. Maybe let's give it a shot, and hope for the best and put all of our effort into it. And that's kind of the way the Kickstarter was, a way of channeling all of that into one effort. So,
and I think from the beginning we had the idea that this would be a different approach to a Star Wars fan film, and that we were going to shoot it like a movie and have the caliber of a real film in terms of the visuals that we brought to the screen.
Okay,
and that inevitably does take money.
Everything takes money. Everything takes money.
True, very true.
So, from the content that I've been able to find on YouTube, let's talk a bit about the concept art. The artist that you used was James Rainier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how do you know James?
There was a Facebook page that I knew of some local artists in the area, and we put a call out, saying we had some concept art. We didn't even say what the project was.
How you met James?
That's
he just
exactly
cold called you?
Yes.
Wow.
Like, straight up.
I didn't even know that.
Wow. We just
lucky.
Yeah. No, we put a call out there. He responded saying that he was a concept artist. We met, and then when I met with him was the first time I told him it was Star Wars and a war film. And just by chance, that happened to be his entire portfolio up to that point. Like, it was like a match made in heaven. It was perfect. And he was, oh my God, he was phenomenal. He's so just detail oriented about everything he does.
There's a common theme that I see that's apparently clear in every aspect of this endeavor, is that it seems like there was a little bit of serendipity involved. It's like you had people falling into places that they fit in perfectly, and they're firing on all cylinders.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's, again, going back to how Star Wars is such a unifying factor, or a unifying force for everybody, But yeah, we definitely got extremely lucky with the talents that got to come in and help us on this project. We couldn't have done it without the amazing crew we had.
That's outstanding. And we're going to make sure that we share as much of that incredible concept art as we can with our readers and followers on Twitter, because obviously we want them to see and appreciate the level of effort and care that it's apparent you all put into this production.
Thank you.
Speaking of that, the sets. Okay, obviously we got the beach at Hunting Island, and shooting on a beach, I mean, I imagine that has to be an absolutely maddening experience.
It really, really is. I mean, almost 2 tons of grip and electric equipment that have to get hauled around. A 200-pound dolly that needs to be taken out into the beach. It's a lot to handle.
It is a lot. It's just a lot of natural fact. I mean, I'm used to shooting things in environments like where we are, like in a house or just on the street corner. But like when you are on a beach, you're walking in sand all day. It's hot.
You need tents.
The sea sprays are. It's like, and then the bugs.
The bugs. Yeah.
Oh,
they're
bugs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was. There was a lot of factors, but like thanks to the crew and the level of passion the crew had, and how experienced everybody was, it was just. I mean, it couldn't have worked better. It was great. So.
And the Fort McPherson.
Fort Fremont.
Fort Fremont. Sorry about that. Fort Fremont. Was there any sort of process you had to go through to get access to film on that site?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We scouted that actually in June, back when I had just finished the script, like just days before, and this was something that like our locations manager had a whole list of beaches and nothing for this access point. We thought we were gonna have to build a lot of it and do a digital set extension to make this happen. But there was this one little place on the list that was like Fort Fremont. We had no idea. Finding it was very difficult. It's very buried.
It's tucked away.
It's
really
very tucked away. It was our last location of the day, and we found it. And like that was the jackpot. We had to figure out some way to make that work for the location.
Okay.
And we reached out to the local historic society. They have control over it, and they're the ones that kind of grant permission for this. And there were a lot of rules and a lot of
a lot of meetings, right? You guys had a lot of meetings with them.
A lot of meetings. It wasn't a matter of cost. It was more a matter of like we want to support you all, but this is like the historic like preservation.
Yeah, and there's a level of respect you have to have when you're on a location that's as sensitive as somewhere like a historic fort.
It's
absolutely
no battery. So it was we got very lucky, very gracious.
But the beauty of that fork was that all the geometry and the way that it was designed fit within the Star Wars canon of how the Star Wars geometry works.
It's crazy how much when you look at certain areas of you could just look in one area and think that could be that could be the
I
temple.
was just about to say that. It looks very similar to the Messiah Temple of Yavin 4, and it's like and that is going to be an Imperial installation. I don't want to give away anything or spoil any content by any means. But, so that's going to be an Imperial outpost, and they're essentially using it in the same fashion the Rebel Alliance.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're taking pre-existing structures and using them for their own purposes.
It's the embodiment of like an Imperial takeover. You know what it would look like if an outside force came in.
An occupation.
Exactly.
An invasion and occupation of a moon. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm attempting to stay on task and on target. We talked about the beach. We talked about the fort. I also heard something about the mock-up of a spaceship being built in a storage unit. I've got to know more about that.
Yeah.
How long did we take to build the spaceship?
The spaceship was it was about a 9-week build.
9-week build.
It was really, but that was just build. We were in concept for several months, just trying to make sure that whatever we painted could be built. It's very easy to get very blue sky idea process when you're dealing with something like a spaceship. There's so many different ways it can work. But luckily we had some really great artists and production designers that were able to
ground it in something that could physically be made.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was cool. It was
a carpenter.
One
very dedicated carpenter.
And our production designer, our production designer was helping build, and our carpenter was a friend of mine from Kentucky. Came down. His name's Adam Peck. He's super talented, and he built the whole thing. He framed it in a couple days.
It was incredible.
It was super cool.
I don't think he slept.
He did not sleep, but we paid him in food.
And then once it was built, it was weeks and weeks of painting and dressing and building the interior.
Yeah. It was something that that was in the script from the very beginning. The ship was always something we knew value-wise to sell. It had to be the part of the film that could carry a lot of weight to it.
Okay. And I feel like a lot of other films would go about doing a ship by maybe doing a portion of the ship or just a small little bit of the ship or even doing a big chunk of it digitally. And I love that Mark's approach was that he wanted to have a full 360 build of the ship to let the actors be in this space and to help embody that kind of fear of, going into battle.
Right, yeah. It was very important for me, at least, to have the ability to put a camera where we wanted to and to, not
to be in a physical space, and then on top of that, there was a full day of pre-lighting to get the lighting to look right in there, including a 12 by 20 green screen that got set up inside the studio space.
It was
one of our bigger days.
The studio spaces, you touched on the storage facility aspect. That was something that had been going since the beginning. You know, I was living out of a dorm, and I knew I couldn't run this production from a dorm. I needed a place. So there was a storage facility that opened up just a few blocks from my dorm, and they were so supportive. They basically let us have 2 units. They took out the wall, put lights in and electric, and we had a production office for a few months. And that was awesome. And then they had another floor upstairs that they converted into set space. And then once we moved out of there, we moved right upstairs to build the set. But that was so crucial to have space to, you know, house production.
I mean, yeah, and that's where a lot of the original props, all the costumes are being weathered and stuff. We had like a home base to really do all the labor that needed to be done before we got to set.
Okay. Yet again, that whole theme of serendipitous circumstance. So obviously we talked about the sets and the locations, and let's hit on some. I saw in the video leading up for Kickstarter that you were focusing on practical effects.
Yeah.
So what was the drive for that? I know it's a contentious subject for Star Wars.
Yeah,
fans,
right.
The CGI versus the practical.
It's a battle, yeah.
Well, one of the things that we really appreciate is that in the original trilogy, there were a lot of practical effects, and not necessarily because that was like a style. It was more out of necessity back then. And we wanted to emulate or pay homage to that kind of mentality and approach to doing the visuals for Star Wars. And so we wanted to implement as much as we could.
Right.
Now, logistically, that kind of caused some problems because we're at like a state park. It was a national park, state park.
Yeah, it's state park.
And so having flame elements or anything like that becomes problematic. So what we ended up compromising on is we had, I think, 5 pneumatic air cannons on set, pumped up to like 120 psi.
Wow.
With solenoids on the end of them that we were firing off from car batteries.
Okay.
Right? And so we had to come up with a good concoction to throw up in the air that would look like sand. Because if you just throw sand in these air cannons, they don't throw very high. The sand's too heavy.
Okay.
And we needed something that'd be safe and repeatable and cheap, right?
Okay.
So what we ended up going with is we went and bought a bunch of bulk generic cereal, breakfast cereal, and crushed up a bunch of Cheerios and Rice Krispies,
Frosted Flakes,
and stuff like that, and launched them up out of the air cannons that we buried in the ground.
Yeah.
And we were able to get a really, really good effect.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we were limited to how much practical effects we could do, but we always wanted to have a layer of practicality underneath that we build on top, because there's always going to be visual effects that we find in Star Wars. You know?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But a layer of practicality that helps sell that realism.
Yeah, that was super important just for the visual effects standpoint for me, because I knew that when it came time for visual effects, if we had something there to work off of, it was just going to sell a lot. It was just going to feel more real. Like it's almost like the elements they look like they could have been practical squibs. But
Okay, so it worked out as part of a good process and a way to give homage to guys like Dennis Muren and all those visionaries.
Absolutely, yeah,
absolutely.
And it's funny because it's like people associate Star Wars with practical effects, even though Star Wars is built on the mentality of always pushing for the newest and greatest thing, especially with visual effects. And in our sense, that's what we're trying to do, is just try to push to our greatest thing, which is the best quality of marrying the two concepts together.
Outstanding. So, what was the process like? Did you have to get a blessing from Lucasfilm at any point?
Yeah, no, it was honestly something we thought about in the very beginning of what cautions do we need to take, and the number one thing we said was this is a nonprofit film. We're going to make this for fans, for people that love Star Wars, and we knew Lucasfilm had their own fan film festival. I've been to it several times. It's where they give out the little gold 3POs and R2. Like it's something I've always watched as a kid, the award shows, and that was something I was like, that'd be so cool to be at. But
so precedent had been set. That Lucasfilm was open and embracing of this whole fan film community, and was actually encouraging this kind of content to be made.
Right.
So we haven't yet received any letters from Lucasfilm.
Hopefully not, please.
No naughty letters.
Please. We're almost done.
And that in turn probably allows you access to some of the original music.
Yeah.
So for Odyssey, I think we wanted to do something. We wanted to incorporate a lot of those cues, right? But still have an original score.
It was very important to me to have an original sound. I mean, the film itself was a very original, piece in itself. It's something we hadn't seen before. And the sound had to reflect that. But I wanted the sound to make sure we had a familiar tone to it that was like, it fits within the world. Like Rogue One's score is very new and different and not Williamsy, but at the same time, there's a few melodies or fanfares that you're like, that's Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same goal for Odyssey.
Okay.
So.
That's outstanding. That is outstanding. So, the story.
Mm.
We know the Star Wars story from a very strategic perspective of a massive galactic civil war.
Right.
Whether it's the Resistance and the First Order, or whether it's the original trilogy incarnation of the Rebel Alliance versus the Galactic Empire, or whether it's the Republic versus the Separatists in the prequel trilogy.
Yep.
We have this very strategic perspective of maybe like 30,000 feet looking down.
Yeah.
Obviously, those kind of things don't happen without a lot of people doing their parts. And the part of rebel foot soldier, infantry man or woman in this instance, is something that tactical perspective, maybe something we haven't seen.
Right.
I noticed on one of the Kickstarter videos that is a theme that drew you in and was ultimately the aim and focus of this film. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it was something that when I looked at this, battle story, I knew that I was going to have to focus on the psyche of one soldier. I was going to have to look at, what this person is dealing with. And this is something we don't see in Star Wars. This is something that, we know is happening. We know people are dealing with these conflicts because it's a wartime struggle. But, we never see this firsthand. So I wanted to show this world through the eyes of a soldier, almost like a kid who gets drafted in. And he's dealing with this whole, like, am I meant for this? Is this who I am? What am I even fighting for? Why is this worth it to me? And all these questions had to culminate in, something very real. Like we've had conversations. It's a very real conflict. But, in a world like Star Wars that, it's very easy to kind of make believe and tell truths in a fictional world. So that was very important. It was important to see the morality struggle, but not just from the hero's journey. Something that is super real and, like you said, boots on the ground, like a soldier's outlook on it. So.
And I definitely love the aspect of the story that, from a macro perspective of the battle or of the conflict in general, it's very easy to see, who's right and who's wrong and like what's good and what's bad. But when you get down to the smaller scale and the smaller decisions you make as a soldier, those lines can be a lot more blurred. And I think that was something we really wanted to play with.
Right. And, it puts the audience in the position of that character. It's like, if you were there, what would you feel like? I mean, you can agree with this character, you can disagree with this character. That's your choice. But this is what he thought was right.
Exactly, yeah.
So
outstanding.
Yeah.
So it's focusing on the gray area.
The gray area.
Absolutely.
Between the light and dark. So.
Outstanding. I literally want to be able to just watch the film right now, just based off of that right there. So, is there a defining moment? Is there a favorite, a favorite moment or defining moment that occurred during filming that you're like never gonna forget?
For me, there was one really particular moment. We were on the beach at Hunting Island. And we had all our stormtroopers out in full suit and stuff. And we started collecting a lot of bogies. Bogies, we call people who come up and watch us filming because they're interested in what's going on. We started amassing a little bit of a crowd. And there were a group of kids, and just seeing their faces when they saw a bunch of stormtroopers on Hunting Island light up. In fact, one of the kids was wearing Star Wars pants. And they were so excited. They came running in and took pictures with all our troopers and stuff. And it was just so magical that for them, when they stepped onto our set, they stepped into Star Wars, that they were in the world of Star Wars. And that, to me, was such a magical moment. What we're doing is worth something here.
Okay. That was one of the moments that I was thinking of. It was so cool to see, a little bit of all sides of it. Because I saw, in the moment, all of these people had come together to make this movie. It was like a dream come true for me. I was like, this is what I've always wanted for this. And that was awesome. And you combine that with, my dad had actually just gotten out of suit and he was, watching the take and he told me to come over and this kid was just sitting over here drawing, like little fan art in his notebook of what he was seeing. And that just took me by surprise, and seeing, like he said, how kids can step into this world and be inspired by it, and it's the ultimate imagination factory. It's awesome. It's so cool to see how they take it, and that we're, even though it may not be official and licensed, we're contributing to that.
Yeah.
We're a part of that, and that's the best feeling in the world. So.
I've always felt like Star Wars belongs to the fans.
Very true.
And for you guys to have taken the story and to have added and given something back, it's outstanding. And I'm absolutely beyond grateful that I got to find out about this project, to have the opportunity to speak with you gentlemen. And I'm going to finish up with the last question, which I know everybody's wondering now. You're wondering, when are we going to be able to take the trip with Star Wars Odyssey?
We are, we're summer 2018. We are, this summer, it will be out on YouTube, for everyone to see. This is something we just want to put out there and spread around the world. We want as many people as possible to see the story.
That's outstanding. All right, Rogues, check it out. While you may have to wait until the summer of 2018 to enjoy Star Wars Odyssey, you have to wait no longer to see the trailer for what's coming up this summer. So stay tuned. It's going to roll right when we're done here with the interview. And thanks for sticking around this long. Your patience has been rewarded.
You want to believe you just joined a cause. But you became a soldier.
No!